Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat bergabung kembali pada Waras TV pada kesempatan yang sangat baik hari ini tanggal 22 Oktober 2025 di Hari Santri. Kita akan membicarakan tentang siapa santri, apa itu pesantren, dan tentang organisasi Nahdlatul Ulama, sebuah organisasi yang besar yang menaungi pesantren-pesantren, sebagian besar pesantren-pesantren di Indonesia, dan juga tentu menjadi organisasi bagi para santri di Indonesia. Narasumber pada kesempatan hari ini adalah Profesor Mark Woodward. Beliau itu adalah ahli tentang Islam di Indonesia dan di Asia Tenggara. Beliau aktif dalam penelitian-penelitian tentang Nahdlatul Ulama, komunitas santri, dan masyarakat muslim pada umumnya di Indonesia dan Asia Tenggara. Buku-bukunya sangat banyak menjadi referensi scholar para sarjana-sarjana di bidang keislaman di Indonesia. Profesor Mark Woodward adalah pengajar di Arizona State University. Sudah cukup lama mengajar di Center for the Study of Religion and Conflict Resolution di Arizona State University, dan cukup lama pernah mengajar di Center for the Religious and Cross-Cultural Studies di UGM atau program studi agama dan lintas budaya UGM, dan juga mengajar beberapa perguruan tinggi negeri maupun swasta di Indonesia, khususnya di Yogyakarta, diantaranya juga di UIN Yogyakarta di Pasca Sarjana, dan juga di Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. Pak Mark Woodward masih aktif menulis jurnal-jurnal dan melakukan riset tentang masyarakat muslim di berbagai wilayah di Asia Tenggara dan juga di Asia Selatan. Sebelumnya, atas kesediaan dan kemurahan hati Prof Mark Woodward untuk menjadi narasumber dalam kesempatan ini, saya mengucapkan terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya. Baik, untuk selanjutnya kita langsung bertanya-tanya kepada Profesor Woodward. Okay, today is Hari Santri. So, what do you want to say for santri in Indonesia?
Selamat Hari Santri to all of the santri in Indonesia, and particularly to Warga Nahdlatul Ulama, or NU, the largest Muslim organization in Indonesia. The word santri generally refers to students who study in Pesantren, the network of Islamic schools that is the basis of Nahdlatul Ulama, and which has made enormous contributions to the development of Indonesia since NU was founded in 1926. Just to go over very briefly, some of the highlights of the history of NU were the Jihad Declaration by Kiai Hashim Ash'ari in 1945, which established the basis for massive participation by NU young people, Pemuda NU, in the struggle for Indonesian independence, something which is all too often has not received the attention that it deserved. NU has also been, and Santri, because in most senses, most young people, most young men anyway, in NU have studied in Pesantren, if only for a brief time, some of them, and if for a very long time for others of them, and an increasingly large number of young girls also study in Pesantren, which is one of the most important developments in the post-colonial NU. NU has been at the forefront in struggles for the establishment of democracy, for overcoming totalitarian rule. I think obviously the best example there, the person who definitely is worthy of being designated as a national hero, is Gus Dur, who was, for a short period of time, president of Indonesia. Before, during, and after his term as president, he was a spokesman for democratic reform, for interfaith dialogue, and for building Indonesian national unity. In addition to being what many people consider to be Wali Sepuluh, the 10th of the great saints of Java. One can see this. I have not been in some years now, but one can see when you visit Gus Dur's grave, Kuburan, in Tebuiring, there are tens of thousands of people who come every day.
Right.
Many in conjunction with what are called Rombongan Wali Songo, where you go from to the graves, visit the graves of all of the 9 Walis and Tanpa Gus Dur. This is a sign that the legacy of NU, beginning with the Walis and continuing through Hashim Ashari and his grandson Gus Dur, continues to be a very important part of social and religious life in modern Indonesia.
Right. Do you agree? Yeah, you say that if we talk about Santri today, then we can say that it is actually about Santri, which are the followers of Nahdlatul Ulama.
Most are.
Most of it.
The term is also used more generally. There are Pesantren that are not NU Pesantren.
Right.
But in a general sense, when we talk about Santri, we're talking about young people who are followers of NU.
Right. Okay, so now, what do you think if Indonesia without NU? Can you imagine Indonesia without NU?
Indonesia without NU is almost unimaginable, both because of the role that the organization and its leaders have played in the development of Indonesia, again starting from the 1920s, and also simply because so many Indonesians are followers of NU in one way or another. We really can't estimate, we can only guess at the number of people who are pengikut NU, because you don't have formal membership cards.
Right. I mean, Indonesia without NU is, you say, unimaginable. But what about in terms of the unity of Indonesia? Is it possible without NU? Because, in my opinion, it is almost impossible because when, for example, NU is not existing in Indonesia, that means there is another form of Islam will be the majority of Indonesia. It could be like Pakistan or Wahhabi or Bangladesh or Malaysia, maybe. But what do you think about that?
Indonesia without NU is almost unimaginable, both simply because of the size of the organization and because of its role in defining what Indonesia means. Okay. And it is by far the largest organization. It also serves to bring people together, not only to bring people together, but even to bring people together who are not part of NU and not even Muslims, because of the positions it has taken on the relationship between the state and religion. Gus Dur was famous for saying that he did not come to the presidency with the religion, but from religion, meaning that religious and particularly classical Muslim values informed political decision-making, informed public policy, but public policy was not to be formulated in terms of fiqh or in terms of specifically Islamic political doctrine. An example of that was some years ago, controversies concerning polygamy and child marriage, when Gusto had already passed at that time, but when NU took the position that while one could not ban early marriage based on fiqh, that in Indonesia, fiqh was subordinate to national law, and because of legislation to ensure the welfare of children, that established a minimum age for marriage, that Muslims were obligated to follow, the national law. This is an example of the way in which NU has proven to be extraordinarily flexible and makes it very different from countries like Pakistan or even Malaysia, where there's increasing pressure for a very, very fiqh-centered discourse about social issues.
So you think that any has what is this, strong in their power to unite the diversity of Indonesian people.
NU has the capacity to establish an understanding of Islam which makes it possible for the great majority of Indonesian Muslims to accept a social and political system based on religious diversity.
Prof Mark, you have been visiting many Muslim communities worldwide, like in Pakistan, maybe Bangladesh, or other countries. What make different santris in Indonesia with other santri? Maybe if there is santri communities in
in many respects, the classical education that santri receive in Indonesia is very similar to the ones that I've seen in many other places where I've been. I think particularly in Nigeria, which is about as far away from Indonesia as it's possible to get, you find the same combination of fiqh and aqidah and tasawwuf. That type of education persists in Malaysia, but is not nearly as strong as it used to be because of two factors: very strong state control of religion, and what Malaysians often refer to as creeping Salafism, where while in the sense of Aqidah, one does not find very many Salafis or Wahhabis in terms of social issues, they have become increasingly influential, much more so than they have in Indonesia. There are also developments in countries like the United Kingdom and the United States where one is beginning to see the establishment of schools which are, well, they're not based on Pesantren. They have a very similar approach to Islamic education. The growth of these institutions is, I think, particularly strong in the UK, where you have institutions, I don't recall the names at the moment, but some of them are centered in major centers of secular learning, such as Oxford and Cambridge, which very much are pursuing this traditional, the same type of traditional Islamic education that you find in Javanese Pesantren.
So, in occasion of this Hari Santri, what is your advice for santri?
Well, my advice for santri would be to continue what you've been doing for generations and generations, which is acquiring a very thorough understanding of the classical basis of Islam, as is found in fiqh, as is found in tasawwuf, as is found in Aqidah, the teachings of Imam Shafi, Imam Ghazali, and in others of the great intellectual and spiritual figures in Islamic history. And at the same time, it's really necessary for contemporary Santri to pursue modern educations in technical fields, science, engineering, technology, public administration, the other types of education that are necessary to make a modern.
Oke, Pak Mark, thank you so much. Demikian bincang-bincang pada hari ini bersama Profesor Mark Woodward. Semoga bermanfaat bagi kita semua. Selamat Hari Santri, Santri Maju, Indonesia Maju. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.